Mr. President, fellow Toastmasters, one of the pleasures of being international director is I get to go to visit districts. My first 2 visits, in early November to Arizona, District 3, and then 2 weeks later, District 34 in Mexico. And they expect me to come and do the keynote, and an educational, and visit corporate clubs, and do a million things. As I create the keynote, this is one of this building successful teams is going to be a piece of the keynote, or it may turn into an educational depending on how it goes. Now, in Washington, D.C., I interviewed 85 of the 100 districts. 45 interviews on the first Sunday. How many did you do that day, Angie?
20, I think.
A ton, right?
A lot.
A lot. And each district brought 2, 3, sometimes 5 people. So think of how many. The issues, while different, are mostly the same. Team building and conflict were some of the major ones. So team building seemed to be a major challenge for all of them, as it is for all of us. In our district, Angie's our leader, no doubt. She's the district director. But guess what? With 1,500 members and 120 clubs, she can do anything she wants, but she can't do anything by herself except send out an email and maybe give a few speeches. She has dozens on her team, maybe 60 or so, if you include all the committees, and then all the top 3 and all the people they have to work with and all the contest chairs. How do you get a team to work together? This seems to be a common problem through all 142 countries in Toastmasters. As part of my campaign, I handed out recipe cards for success to everyone who came to visit, to all the district leaders and anyone who visited us in the convention center. One of my recipe cards, as it so happens, and you now have a copy of, is the recipe for making a difference, building successful teams. Was I prescient? How did I know this would be an issue? Because I talked to a lot of districts even before I came. Tonight, I want to share with you some ideas about how do you build a team, because it doesn't happen by magic. And every great leader has to have a great team. Otherwise, you're Donald Trump standing in a lectern tweeting out your ideas. And that's not team. That's not how we get success. Patty's going, oh, is that political? So how do you start? Well, one is you have to know yourself, which I really like, because in Toastmasters, first you work on yourself. You learn, and then you help others. I love that. That's why we're in Toastmasters. It's not completely servant leadership or service leadership. Because if you don't know how to do it, if you don't learn, you can't really help anyone else. And that's what I love about Toastmasters. So first you have to know yourself. How do you work? I'm not saying that's how you make everyone work, but if you don't know your hot ones, if you don't know what you like. Now we've had, just think about the last few district directors we've had. Some are very team-oriented. Ross comes to example. Others are very clear about what their objectives are, and you're either on the team or you're off the team. I won't say who that is. And you can be successful no matter. Others are a hybrid. Some lay out the vision and expect you to follow, and they leave you alone. Others bug you every minute. I'm not saying one way is better than the other, but you have to know how you work so that when you work with your team, you'll know what your buttons are. And you may have to change, or you may have to listen and do aspects of that team building that are uncomfortable for you, and that's okay. So my quote for this part is, you have to be your own boss, because otherwise, Toastmasters International has rules, the region advisor has rules, the international director will be whispering in your ear. You have so many things in your mind, but you have to know what you are, your own boss. Yet you have to be flexible. And that's a hard juxtaposition, because you have to do both those things. And you have to know who you are as a leader. Are you going to be demanding? Are you going to be collegial? Are you going to work on a democracy, or is it going to be a benign dictatorship? They all can be successful. Know how you work. The second part is, you have to know the rest of your team. Now, Angie, I don't know how you can get to know 65 or so people that are on your team, but I know there's 2 you need to know, actually 3. She has to know her other top 2, the club growth director and the program quality director. And she already knows how they operate because they spend 24 hours a day for 10 days in Washington, D.C. She knows which ones will share information and which ones you have to pry it out, which ones are going gangbusters. And the third person I'd say would be the public relations person, because that's her right-hand person when it comes to getting the word out. If I don't get an email from Angie on Monday morning, was it Tuesday morning this week? Then my week can't start. But you have to know your team and what drives your team. And for all of us, just no different than being the club president. You know who you can rely on, and you know who you have to prod a little bit, and you know whose work you're just going to do it for them, for all of us. But and in knowing your team, it doesn't mean you accept them as they are, but you want to help them grow. I always talk about one rung on the ladder. You want to move them up. You can't make them perfect, but you can help them grow. And I think that is so important. So the thought that comes to mind here is think of your team as puzzle pieces. And you have to put them together in a way that works. So you can't just put anybody as your TLI chair. You can't put just anybody as your newsletter editor. You can't put just anybody to be your club mentor or club coach chair. You have to find the right person for the right job. I work in government. You heard I have 10 managers and 350 staff. Some of them are in the wrong job, and they've been in the wrong job for 20 years, and I'm counting the hours until they retire, because there's not a lot I can do about it. But in Toastmasters, we have a lot more options. We elect our leaders, but our leaders get to appoint their own team at the highest level, and we have some control over our club officers as well, so think about that. I like the idea of the puzzle pieces, because sometimes you'll say, we're missing that piece, or why won't that go in? It might not go in. Know yourself, and then know your team. The third part, define roles and responsibilities. This, to me, is the key. And of all the districts I spoke with, and more than a few had conflict. I'm going to get rid of that club growth director. I'm going to find a way to get rid of that person before the second DEC. Or, I can't believe what they did last year. That person's still causing me trouble. They won't leave me alone, and they won't leave. And I found that more often than not, people didn't know what their job was. And in Toastmasters, we call it a volunteer organization, but it's not a volunteer organization. It's, once you volunteer, that's now your responsibility, right, Patty? True. You don't get to be President's Distinguished and Toastmasters Division Director of the Year and Lydia Boyd winner without knowing all of this. You have to know, right? You have roles and responsibilities, and you can't do it all for everyone. So I think people are afraid to have that conversation. The beauty of Toastmasters is you have a mentor, your immediate past district director. Some are great, and they go, what do you need? How can I help you? That's the question you want to hear. Right, Ange?
Yes.
Right. Some say, you're doing it wrong, this is the way we've always done it, and if you're not going to do it this way, I can't support you, and I'll get 10 other past district directors and governors to not support you. You don't think that happens? There are some districts where the past district governors run the district, and the poor district director just stands up and talks whatever they tell her to say. So it can be a challenge. So you have to know the roles, and I think if we clarify roles and responsibilities, a lot of that conflict will go away. And then the person can say, I'm going to play or I'm not going to play, and you can move them along the way. The fourth is give proactive feedback. What does that mean? How do you give feedback ahead of time? Well, you give it ahead of time. This is what to look out for. I know you, and this is, you seem to have a challenge here. How can I help you get through that? That's a great opportunity. Don't wait till it's too late. And don't be afraid to give feedback. Now, in Toastmasters, our feedback operation works in evaluation. It's one. The evaluator gives a talk and you listen. But when you build a team, it has to be two ways. Here's what I saw. Was that correct? What can I do to help you? Like, run out of time. So the last two fit together: acknowledge and reward, and celebrate success, which means this we do in Toastmasters. There's ribbons, there's trophies, there's pins, there's certificates, and take the time to celebrate success. And many of the divisions in June, May and June, will celebrate the success, and then we always do a big event in July where we bring everyone up and we give trophies, awards, certificates, pins. It's fantastic, and that's good. That work we're the same way, but it's not. So these are the keys to building a team. Leaders are only as good as their team. I've learned this the hard way, I promise you. In Toastmasters and in our professional lives, the leaders are the key to building the team, and you as a team can help the leader succeed. Mr. Toastmaster.